Hello, English literature students. Today's lecture is about one of the famous poems in the American literature entitled Richard Cory. Actually, it is a very unique poem, and as we are going to read, we will see in what ways it represents one kind of, let's say, literary movements that influenced literature in the United States. The poem is by the poet Edwin Arlington Robinson. And here we are going to talk about kind of poetry which mainly belongs to the school of realism. And branch of realism is what we know as naturalism. So we are going to see how this poem represents these new emerging forms of literature. So, what do we need to know about the poem? Robinson's poetry is considered to be part of naturalism, as I have told you, which emphasizes the influence of parental, societal, and environmental factors on the development of the human character. So, basically, you know that as we read literature, as we go through literary ages and literary movements, we always see that each one of them focuses on a certain influence or certain factors that affect the way that people reflect or represent themselves in literary works. So when it comes to naturalism, some writers like Robinson, some poets or writers like Robinson, they believe that what influences greatly influences a person, their personality, their identity, is the environment, things that surround them, some kind of natural influence that comes through society, that comes through the environment, that comes through maybe even the small environment in a family or in the house, their parents. Okay, so the human character that is described in their work is all the time, uh, you see, he's the product of such influence. Okay, naturalism is an extreme form of realism. In writing, cinema, theater, and art, naturalism first appeared in the late 19th century. Okay, it was part of course, realism. um, since it is part of realism, of course, it's going to represent people from real life in real situation with real influence on them. You can say it's a very extreme form of realism. Darwin's theory of evolution, actually, there's an opinion which believes that it is part of the influence of Darwin's theory on let's say, literature, which was released in the mid 1800s. It had direct impact on its emergence. The emergence of such ways of thinking in literature was largely because of Darwin's theory. Naturalism often examines the darker sides of life, like prejudice, racism, poverty, and disease. So, whenever you see works written by poets or writers who belong to this kind of literary movement, naturalism, you will see that they deal with such topics. Why? Because you see, if you look at these topics, actually they are the result of the influence of society and environment on man. Richard Cory first appeared in the American Poets 1897 collection, The Children of the Night. So there is this poetry collection, Children of the Night, and the poem appears in it. Let's go through the poem. Actually, it's not a very long one, and it's interesting and easy to read. Whenever Richard Cory went downtown, we people on the pavement looked at him. He was a gentleman from sole to crown, clean-favored and imperially slim. From the very first stanza, we are introduced into Richard Cory. Who's Richard Cory? It seems that he's someone who's liked person. He's well known in his neighborhood, in the town, not only in his neighborhood, and people just like him. Why? Because he has all these qualities. If you notice, he says, whenever Richard Cory walked downtown, we, the people, and here the speaker is representing everyone in the town. He's part of them. He's just one of the people who keep looking all the time at Richard Cory whenever he walks by. Okay, the speaker here established a societal point of view, and this is important. Not say we, We people on the pavement. Notice this, it's interesting. He's telling us that I'm talking to you and I'm showing you the point of view of society. Now I'm talking from this point of view. Okay? So everyone was looking at Richard Cory whenever he passed by, whenever he walked down the street. Why? What's so special about him? He was a gentleman from soul to crown, clean favored and imperial slim. Everything about him attracted the attention of the onlookers. He was refined and looked as a member of the upper class. Actually, when you look at his appearance, he's very gentle, he's very neat. His clothing reveals that he's part, maybe he's someone wealthy and rich. He belongs to the upper class. Okay, he was good looking and thin. He was, notice here the word imperially. Imperially, it's parts of, you see, he has this kind of aura of emperors. You see, he walks like a king, like an emperor. So he's really an attractive person. So whenever he walks by, people just keep staring at him, looking at him, admiring him. And he was always quietly arrayed, and he was always human when he talked. But still he fluttered pulses when he said, "Good morning," and he glittered when he walked. What are other things that really attract the attention about him? His clothes were always simple and neat. Okay, arrayed. Arrayed means he's talking about the way he's dressed. Okay, arrayed here means dressed. Okay, although being wealthy, I mean, he looks wealthy, but at the same time, he looks really simple man in what sense? In the sense that he knows how to how to be, let's say, clean and neat, and chooses his clothes very, let's say, precisely. He knows what to wear. Okay, so was his way of talking, even the way he speaks. Although it seems that he's not someone who speaks much, because you see, all that they know about him, or let's say the only thing they heard of him is good morning, just a salute. He's saluting them. Good morning. He said even this simple uh, word, good morning, whenever he say it, people are just, excited to hear him say such simple expression. And he glittered when he walked. Everything about his movement, walking, appearance, talking, so all the things that related to the outside of Richard Cory were really attractive, and people will always be, you see, excited about him, and also they admire him so much. Okay, and he was rich, yes, richer than a king, and admirably schooled in every grace. Cory was incredibly rich and sophisticated. Even in terms of money and wealth, he was rich, and he's actually, if we think about it, he was richer than the people, you see, and admirably schooled in every grace. In fine, we thought that he was everything to make us wish that we were in his place. What's the attitude of people? Not just that they admire him, but they admire him to the point that they wish they would be, if they could have all that he has, the money, the good looking, the grace, let's say even this kind of aristocracy that he appears in. You see, he had all the good and refined qualities that made us wish to be like him. We all wanted to be Richard Cory. I mean, the speaker, of course, here he's talking on behalf of the whole society. He says that this is not, let's say, an individual opinion. This is the whole community's opinion about Richard Cory. Everyone wished to be like him. Everyone wanted to be like Richard Cory. We wished that we are like him. So on we worked. Now he shifts the speaker. Now he's talking about the people. So on we worked and waited for the light, and went without the meat and cursed the bread. What is it, the situation of society around Richard Cory? What are they like? The speaker then gets our attention back to the people of the town. We continued working, he's talking about them, and hoped for things to get better. So it seems that the people in the town in which Richard Cory is living, they are not as rich as him. They don't have luxuries just like him. Let's say they don't have the good qualities like him. They are simple, maybe they are poor, they are suffering from the let's say the struggles of daily life, of obtaining their own let's say living, earning their living for every day. You see, these are tiresome things that people are suffering. Okay. And went without the meat. So we gave up looking for fancy food like meat and ate the cheap food, bread. So this is the situation. And that's what makes people admire and aspire to be like Richard Cory. Okay, this is part of what makes people feel that that Cory's situation and life is contrastive to their own situation. They feel that they suffer and struggle, unlike Richard Cory, who seems to be living a very beautiful, happy, luxurious life. But what happened in the last two lines? Notice here. And Richard Cory, one calm summer night, went home and put a bullet through his head. What happened? Actually, one day, or let's say one night, Richard Cory committed suicide. Unfortunately, and one quiet summer night, Richard Cory went home and shot himself in the head. He committed suicide. So this is really shocking. The end is very shocking indeed. After all this description that we find about Richard Cory, about you see all these beautiful qualities that he has that makes people envy him. In the end, calmly, he just took away his life. What does this tell us? I mean, this is the end of the poem. The poet does not say anything else. Why and what's the reason behind his suicide? Um, what happens next? We don't know. This is an open end. What can we understand from this poem? You see, Richard Cory, according to the speaker's description, seemed to be a known entity for all people whom the speaker is talking on their behalf. Whom here? Okay. Actually, when we were listening to the speaker's description, we thought that they know Richard Cory very well. They know everything about him. But then we come to realization that actually what they know about Richard Cory is just on the surface. So everything they know about Richard Cory is just on the surface. You see, uh, they know he has money, good looks, gentility, connections. All these things are on the surface. What about deep down in his own, let's say, mind or in his own heart? Do you know what kind of feelings, what kind of things he's suffering from? Maybe what are the things that engage his mind? Nobody actually knew about this. So this is really a good lesson, not to look at people just from the surface and think that you know them, because in reality, you don't know them. Cory's life seems luxurious compared to the common people's hard life, and this makes them aspire to be like him. But the poem's end reveals that they didn't really know what Cory's life was like. Maybe he was suffering from certain psychological problems. Maybe he had certain uh, past experience that is tormenting or torturing him all the time. Maybe he has some kind of mental disorder, or we don't know. The internal things of Richard Cory's personality are mysterious to us. We don't know anything about them. And actually, this is true of anyone. We don't know anyone's internal thoughts and life. Appearances are always deceiving, and nobody could have full knowledge beyond what they see. And this is impossible indeed. We cannot have full knowledge of anybody's internal struggles or personality, no matter how they show us from the outside. Nothing that appears from the outside is always true. Okay? Perhaps Cory was not clean favored, nor imperially slim, nor gentle. It could be only people's subjective opinion of him. Who said that what the speaker or what the people thought about Cory was true? How do we know? Maybe this is just their own opinion, and maybe they are talking about what they think that Richard Cory is. Okay? So sometimes what you think you know about people is just something on the surface, not something real. The poem's simple and quiet pace makes the reader as deceived as the community itself. I mean, not only the community in which Richard Cory lives was deceived by what they see. We as readers, actually, we were made to believe, and this is part of the style of the poem. And this is one, I would say, is attributed to Robinson's skill, because he has revealed the character of Richard Cory. He spoke about Richard Cory in a very natural and realistic way. Actually, he didn't, for example, start in a certain way and then he reached to certain climax and made us, let's say, have this kind of suspense about the character of Richard Cory. No, he was talking about normal person, normal daily life, normal people looking at a normal person like Richard Cory, and then finally he, using very straightforward and simple expressions, revealed that Richard Cory killed himself. Okay, this style is really important in understanding the poem, because what makes us shocked in the end, what makes us shocked in the end is this simplicity in the expression, that um, we were just normally moving along with the poem and the things that the poet was telling us about Richard Cory and about the community, but suddenly in the end we were shocked, just like the people in the town. They were shocked by Cory's death, sorry, suicide, and so we are the readers. Maybe we also, as readers, are also deceived by appearances, and we could have believed, just like the community, that Richard Cory was a perfect human being, or he has perfect conditions of life. Okay? Interestingly, Robinson reveals with simple and straightforward expressions the striking suicide of Richard Cory, and it is because of this simplicity that the final scene is very shocking. So we can say that this poem is a very fine example of what it means to not be deceived by appearances and always to understand reality as something open to many interpretations and understandings. Okay, I just want to show you in the end this painting by Edouard Manet. He's a French painter. The painting is entitled Suicide. If you look at this painting, actually, when I was reading about the poem and I saw this painting, I thought they are connected. Look at this person. He has committed suicide by shooting himself with this gun. And look at his clothing. He seems to be someone, you see, really neat and clean favored, just like Richard Cory. You see, he's not, for example, someone poor or someone unknown. It seems that he's maybe just like Richard Cory. He's well known in his community. He's rich. He's wealthy. He's established young man. And the perspective from which Edouard Manet is showing us this painting, if you notice, we are looking as if we have come inside this room and we are looking at this this man who has just committed suicide, and from the place or the position we are looking from here, we can't see the person's expression. We cannot see it. Maybe this is not important, as long as there are people like Richard Cory who suffer silently, and unfortunately, they take their life and they commit suicide also without being noticed. Okay, so this is Richard Cory, a very interesting poem from the American poetry. Hope to see you in next videos very soon. Thank you.